Hello, my fellow sensitive people. It is me, your favorite oracle named Whimsy, the one that brings a smile to your face, the one that brings sunshine and hope to the world in a whimsical sort of way. And I'm here to read the cards and to talk a little bit about some of the latest events that have been going on in the world. Let's start with, unfortunately, Hurricane Helene. There are still people trapped in their homes. We want to send love and healing and prayers to everybody that has been in the middle of this horrible, horrible disaster. And hopefully everyone and your pets will be safe in a very short amount of time. For those people who don't know, I'm a remote viewer. I'm a professionally trained remote viewer, and I use a technique which is called heart-centered remote viewing, which is different than the more conventional remote viewing. I've been trained in both. In the case of heart-centered remote viewing, we become the thing or the person that we are attempting to get information on. We use empathy techniques. Now, some of these empathy techniques are very ancient. They can be traced back to the Bond technique out of Tibet. But there are other cultures throughout the world, other shamanic traditions, where people have used different types of heart-centered remote viewing. As I had said in previous remotes, when I had put myself in the path of the Hurricane Helene, one of the things we do as remote viewers, as I said, is we become aligned with that thing or person that we're trying to understand. And I felt myself pushed eastward. And so for that reason, I felt that the maps were wrong. And I felt like North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina were vulnerable, but I felt that eastern movement, and that is why I felt that North Carolina was not safe. Unfortunately, I was right, and Asheville is doing terrible right now. Some of the footage coming out. What will the long-term effects of this be? Are people going to have trouble getting their insurance? Do they now feel like they have to move? What kind of protection can we have going forward in terms of levees, etc., preparing for global warming? I felt as I went into this energy that it was a wake-up call for many people that were in the southeastern United States. I think Tennessee was also hit, Alabama. Many, many states were hit. And without judgment, without attacking anybody, first we have to get everybody safe, but this is an opportunity for us to have sane, rational conversations with people about those weather changes. And I think this could be the thing that takes out Donald Trump more than anything else, because when I have put myself in the shoes of people in Florida, when I have put myself in the shoes of people in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, I feel a humbling. I feel that I have been battered and broken, and people don't want to hear about how global warming is only going to make the ocean rise 1/4 of an inch in 200 years and you're going to get more beachfront property. People don't want to hear any more amusing, comical statements from Donald Trump about something this catastrophic. They want real answers. They want someone to tell them the truth, and they want to know what can be done to protect their lives, protect their homes, protect their property. I think, depending upon how Kamala Harris and Biden handle this and the amount of strength that they show in the coming weeks, it's very likely it's going to cost Donald Trump the election. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I felt when I went into this remote is I felt that a lot of people were pulling back from support of Trump in Florida, and people had assumed that Florida was going to go to Donald Trump. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there's been a humbling. I think people are genuinely frightened. I think people are in shock. And I think people could move away from Trump at this time. I also think that Doug Emhoff and Kamala need to spend some time in Florida talking to Jewish voters, reaching out to people in the Jewish community, not just people that have been hit by the hurricane, but people that are concerned about the future of Israel, the rights of citizens in Gaza, the West Bank, etc., because there's real concerns about the future of that part of the world. Are we going to get to peace? Are we going to see security? Are we going to see an end of the hostilities? Security, dealing with issues of anti-Semitism in the United States. People are genuinely afraid, and fear causes people to do irrational things, to make irrational decisions. And I think by having Harris and Doug Emhoff in Florida addressing those conversations about the Middle East and real solutions to dispel all this anger and rage that we see happening is going to go a long way in terms of helping her win the election and possibly even take Florida. Remember, I think that it was Barack Obama did in fact take Florida. He went to retirement homes, spoke to concerned people in Florida. People thought that he was a Muslim terrorist, right, because of all of the misinformation that had come out of the John McCain campaign. And going to Florida and having those conversations, real one-on-one conversations, had an impact on the election. The other thing I want to say about the Middle East is that, as many of you know, Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, has been taken out with bunker bombs by Israel. For those people who don't know who he is or who Hezbollah is, it's a terrorist organization. He was responsible for the deaths of many Americans. It's one of the reasons why U.S. troops were stationed in northern Syria, was to control for some of the activities of Hezbollah. They're a proxy army of Iran. And it was actually Donald Trump that basically created much of the problems we're seeing right now between Israel and Hezbollah, because it was Donald Trump who pulled those U.S. troops out of northern Syria, opening the door to Iran's proxy army. And they were able to move into southern Lebanon and begin firing on Israelis. They killed many people, many children, many people in the Druze community were killed. The Druze villages were attacked. And so for that reason, many people are blaming actually Donald Trump for the current situation, not Biden, Donald Trump, because of his involvement in pulling U.S. protection. He also basically left the Kurds to be massacred because they also were not protected. It goes back to the conversations we've had in the past about trade routes and about allies, the strong relationship between Iran, Turkey, and Russia because of trade in the Caspian and trade in the Black Sea. And those are strong relationships, and those trade routes are going to be protected. Syria is also a part of that relationship. So you have the United States and Israel protecting Western trade routes, and you have Russia working with their allies, Iran and Syria, to secure their trade routes. And so basically what Trump did by pulling U.S. troops out of northern Syria was he helped Russia and their friend Iran with their trade routes, with devastating consequences for the security of the entire area. And what a lot of people don't know is that many of the people in Iran are opposed to the current Muslim leadership, and many Iranians have actually converted to Christianity or have returned to Zoroastrianism, which is a far more ancient religion out of that part of the world. And as a result, they are anti-Hezbollah. They're dancing in the streets. They're sipping drinks, both in Lebanon and in Iran, because there is such a growing animosity towards Hezbollah and the extreme Shia government in Iran. However, in Iraq, which U.S. Troops pulled out of Iraq, we're seeing a growing extremism starting to develop. Under Saddam Hussein, who was a secularist, it was actually a much more open secular society than what it has now been replaced by, and new open communication and possibly weapons support, etc., etc., happening between Iran and Iraq. Of course, also the Houthi in Yemen are also firing on Israel. That's rather sad for a number of reasons, and the main reason because so many children are starving, malnutrition, real poverty happening in Yemen, and yet millions of dollars are being spent on trying to destroy Israel rather than feeding their own citizens. And again, a lot of this has to do with trade routes and the fact that U.S. troops pulled out of the Middle East, placing a huge burden on Israel by taking away that security. All right, so I thought I would go ahead and I would do the empath's prayer, and we can take a look at some of the changes. I want to get into Trump's head. As I had said in previous remotes, the sexual abuse survivors, the women who had been victims of sexual assault by Donald Trump, the fact that he's a serial abuser, serial rapist, that would be coming to the forefront, and that we would start seeing interviews and more information coming out in the press. And that's in fact happening. The Lincoln Project is beginning to do commercials exposing Trump's past history. But I believe we're going to start seeing more conventional news programs covering this and interviewing the survivors. And I think that also is going to have a negative impact on Trump's campaign. All right, so if you haven't had a chance to do so yet, it would be great if you could like and subscribe to the channel. Also think about memberships. I do offer free readings to members on Saturday, and we do teach remote viewing at the Elders and Empaths level. We get together on Friday night. It's a lot of fun. We get together for about an hour and a half, and we remote view, and we discuss how remote viewing is done. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and do the empath's prayer, and I'm going to get into Trump's head. We're going to take a look at some of the stuff we've talked about, and I'm going to give you the lowdown on everything. So let's do it. Okay. I want to call on white light protection for myself and this community as we ask permission from Spirit to access the Akashic records. We call on our spirit guides and our good angels to be with us. Please give us the clarity and the wisdom that is needed to empower all of us on our journeys, to make the best decisions for ourselves, our families, the planet, the people we love, but also to help those that we may have strife with. And together collectively as a community, we say, Amen. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that in terms of Donald Trump, we're going in now to his energy, and I'll tell you how I feel as him. A lot is going on in terms of legal action against him when it comes to January 6th, the new filing with Jack Smith, and the money issues are coming up. It comes up a lot when I go into this energy, selling $100,000 watches. He's got a lot of money he needs to come up with, and he's got to come up with it fast. He owes hundreds of millions of dollars. He just burns through money. It's interesting when you think about it from a spiritual perspective, because money is energy. We have money going out, we have energy going out in the form of money, and we burn energy in the form of work to get money. So it's interesting that he has no control over his energy, no control over his money. But let's take a look at where Trump is at right now. Where is Trump at right now? His mood, his emotional state. He's got a lot of money supporting him. As many of you know, the America PAC with Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. But is it enough to get him into the White House? Donald Trump's energy at this time. I also have a feeling that the ERA and a woman's right to choose could wind up in every single state in the union, in which case we're looking at an amendment. And if we have an amendment, then the Supreme Court would have no power to control a woman's right to choose, because it would be an amendment. And so the direction we may be going in the future is that we have to have an amendment, an amendment in ERA to protect women, to have this country recognize women as human beings and as equals to men, but also that guarantees our right to control our own bodies. Seems like the only way we can protect ourselves from Trump's Supreme Court is by having an amendment. All right, let's take a look. Where he is at right now. The King of Wands is an entrepreneur. This is what I've talked about in the past. He seeks to have territory. He wants to. It's a territory card, my way or the highway. So it's somebody who is fighting to preserve his own territory. And his karma card is taking the weapons away from his enemies. So he's trying to take the weapons away from his enemies. The problem is that Trump has a lot of enemies. And but those two things together, it's very territorial. He's very fighting to hold on to what he has, but he's also trying to dismantle those who he feels are threatening his position of power. And where he is at this time, the 10 of Cups. This is like the happy family. This is a positive card that has to do with the family. People think that he's in love with Laura Loomer. Evidently, there are some salacious rumors coming out that he could, I know it's not Melania, but there's this nice, beautiful, happy family energy over him. And then the crossing card is rapid changes going on in the family. Rapid changes going on in the family. This could be the family of the Republican Party, and huge changes that are taking place in his happy or in his happy domain. What is above him is heartbreak. This is something that I've seen in the past for Donald Trump, and I'm a little bit worried about his heart health. I've said before that, I don't know if his doctors have really. I'm sure he has good doctors, but this 3 of Swords has me really concerned, just as somebody who has medical training. I really worry that there's too much inflammation. He's working too hard. He's stressed out. And I just feel like he's got a lot of inflammation. Junk food, getting older, getting tired. It could be having an impact on his life. What he's sitting in right now is addiction. So if you're looking at action, reaction, which is something that I do, and I talk to students when I teach the tarot about this, we look at everything has an action and a reaction. What he sits in or marinates in is the 3rd house. And what he's sitting in and marinating in is codependency, addiction, obsessive compulsive disorder, when you cannot let something go. And it leads to heartbreak. It could also be a addiction to a relationship, an addiction to a drug or a substance. But whatever he is addicted to, it's having a huge impact on his health, and it's having a heartbreak here. Could also be that there are rapid changes in his family that's also leading to heartbreak. This is not a good omen because it's entering in from the 4th position, which means it's an energy coming down into the world, and it's due to something that he has been dealing with for a very long time, possibly an addiction or a codependent relationship. This is traditionally the wife's card because she's in white. It's also the dreamer's card. She rubs her lamp. The fact that it's positioned next to a marriage card could indicate that it has something to do with his relationship with his wife or his relationship with a woman. And the Emperor card is the card that I associate with leadership. It's the presidency, it's the executive branch. to be honest with you, I get the impression looking at these cards that to some extent, being in politics really hurt this relationship. Maybe they felt they had a good thing going. He had his job, she had her job. They had a great life in New York. They had plenty of money to play with. People thought he was a fun, amusing kind of a guy. And then he made the mistake of getting involved in politics, making certain racist statements, etc. If he had stayed out of politics, not made racist statements, and just been a goofy guy who made silly little jokes and did The Apprentice, they would be in a very different place right now. But this is not auspicious for his marriage. I would think not. Not with this Three of Swords coming in and the Devil. It could also indicate that whatever his addiction was, or maybe it could be sex addiction, drug addiction, whatever it was, it had a negative impact on his marriage. But the fact that the presidency coming in as a heartbreak or an issue, I just don't see his wife with him. She comes in a past placement. Where he's at right now, he's dealing with the courts. He's dealing with legal issues, and those legal issues could be having a negative impact on him going forward. He feels that these legal issues, a lot of this stuff, again, would not have happened if he had not decided to run for presidency in the first place. Okay. And then the opposition is the Queen of Wands. We've talked about the fact that the Queen of Wands is a card that I associate with Kamala Harris. And the reason why I have picked that card as the card for Kamala Harris is because it's a woman who establishes her territory. She seeks her way, my way, or the highway. She's very strong and determined. She seeks justice absolute. But it's different than the Queen of Swords in the sense that it's very aggressive and it's very territorial. And I think that it has to do with Kamala Harris and the fact that they're involved in this race. He is being beaten by a woman, and he is being beaten badly by a woman. I think today, again, the numbers were back up for her. And I do feel that Hurricane Helene is really going to hurt his numbers. The hopes and the fears for him at this time, the world, the situation globally, how it's going to have an impact on him. There's a lot of reasons, I think, for that. It looks like the war could be winding down in Ukraine. It looks like Putin is probably going to be gone in the very near future. Whatever deal he had with Putin, if he was being paid by Russia, we can't guarantee that that's going to be the case in the future. Again, it's about working out these issues with trade routes, the Suez Canal, the Caspian Sea, the Black Sea. That's really what these wars are about. And this global concern could be who is in his pocket. Now Jared's under investigation for taking billions from Saudi Arabia in a quid pro quo possibly. But there's just this issue of legal and possibly having a global impact. And the final outcome for him, the Queen of Pentacles. Queen of Pentacles could be a dark-haired woman. It's also my card for the FBI. And that's because I use the feminine for the FBI. And the Keeper of Secrets is the Queen of Pentacles. And she investigates. She is also associated with money. The courts. The FBI, his issues with the presidency, being in battle, being heartbroken, I don't see his marriage surviving. And I don't know if that's because the money ran out, packing up and moving somewhere else. He has a legal situation where he packs up and the direction is northeast of where he's at right now. I keep seeing him leaving Mar-a-Lago and possibly moving to Bedminster, to New Jersey, or even back to New York, because I just don't see him stable where he's at right now. Over Harris, there's a transformation happening to her. People say that they see her being transformed into the presidency, that they actually see a kind of transformation happening to her. The hope and the fear for him, the Archangel Michael would be the Archangel of Truth, and the final outcome for him, Knight of Cups. Actually not a bad sign. It could be that he's offered some kind of a deal. However, it doesn't look like he's necessarily going to win. Instead, it looks like heartbreak, stress in the heart area, and stress over his marriage, a desire for territory, and a desire to possibly stress because of the presidency. I just want to check now and quickly see, do some blitzes to see about how Hurricane Helene has an impact on the election. And how will Harris do? Is Trump done because of Hurricane Helene? Yes, Trump is finished because of Hurricane Helene. Hurricane Helene was the last straw where you had undecided voters. Maybe 10% of the people were on the fence, undecided, or they were tentatively voting for him unless something changed, and something changed. I'll show you the cards. You have here hanging it up. So he hangs up the presidency over an issue of 8 of Swords. I think his opposition is a lot of its legal mess. This guy is wrapped up in tape. And then hopes and fears, the contract. It's also a real estate card. It's a card that has to do with building a foundation, and you can see death. The clarification for Trump, whether or not Helene takes him out, he refuses to acknowledge the problem. He failed to acknowledge that global warming was real. He failed to address the issues, and he failed during his presidency to take necessary measures to protect those people that were living in vulnerable areas. And his opposition regarding the red tape, it was his karma or it was his destiny because of whatever he did in the past. And then regarding the contract, he walks away and he will be impoverished. You have this poverty card over the contract. This guy has this is also legal evidence against somebody. And then over the death and the transformation, the King of Wands. This, I think it's not a bad idea for him to try and sell watches, to be honest with you. He's got real issues, court cases and legal issues, and poverty. He's tied up in red tape because of his own bad decisions. But he could enter back into the world of entrepreneurship where he's trying to wheel and deal. I keep seeing him trying new business ideas. He may be able to avoid prison, but he's going to have to look at new ways to make money. Real quick, I'm just going to check on Kamala Harris going to Florida. I have a good feeling that if she goes and talks to the people there, she could win Florida as well. Kamala Harris in Florida. Yes, it's very likely she could win Florida. Right now, people are confused. You can see the lunacy, the confusion. Florida is in real chaos right now. The bad weather, the fears that more is coming, the fact that people feel that they were lied to. There's a real feeling of reckoning, just total confusion and fighting and conflict. I feel like MAGA is collapsing. I feel like they are confused and fighting. They need hope. 9 of Cups in the hopes and fears. They need hope. They need to believe that something better is coming. And the Emperor card is the presidency, and it falls on Kamala Harris. It falls on Kamala Harris. Look at this confusion and chaos over the Republicans right now. The sun is coming out. Things are drying up. There's new money coming in. The hopes and the fears. People are fearful economically. And the situation is changing very, very quickly. But my presidency card is the Emperor, and it fell as the final outcome for Kamala Harris. And so for that reason, we could see a shift of 3 to 4 points in the coming days in Florida for Harris, and in which case she could take Florida. And it just had to do with this massive confusion and fighting amongst the people and real fear. This is holding on to one's coin. But then the sun comes out, and then economic help and aid comes to the people. And then we have this rapid energy over her as she shifts into president mode. As it stands right now, Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States. And I think the hurricane dramatically shifted people's opinions about Trump. BS versus somebody who, in a compassionate way, can speak truthfully to them about what is going on in that part of the world. All right, I want to thank you all for joining me for this reading. If you're trying to get in for a tarot reading with me, you need to see me as a remote viewer. You can book me through Booksy, and then I call you at the appointed time. The information is below. If you need to see me as a medical intuitive and naturopathic physician, you can also book me through Booksy. And again, that information is below. Be well, God bless, be kind to all, so that all will be kind to you too, and we'll see you next time. Peace out, everyone. Bye-bye.